Alright, the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cover my entire canvas with black paint. So this is gonna allow me the ability to basically not feel that pressure to fight against the white. I'm mixing my black paint with a lot of water as well. So it's kind of a thinner layer, but we will build up 2 thicker layers. I'm just using an up and down motion. I hear the trees blowing. Do you hear them? Oh, I'm not sure if you can hear them from where you are. Don't worry about the canvas being perfect. In fact, it's fun to have something messy to work from. There's multiple paintings underneath this painting already, which creates more texture for me to work on, or I don't know how I would say that. It creates more texture and give for me to work with. And if you're a painter, you know what I mean. Sometimes working on a super flat surface just feels a little unsettling, to say the least. This is a good start. I'm actually going to layer up a little bit heavier paint in the center. The boring part is kind of letting it dry a little bit, but I really don't have to let it dry all the way to work into it. I wanted to pick a spooky theme for the spooky season coming up, but I also wanted to do something that was relatively accessible, and so that's where the skull comes in. Alright, now we have a black canvas. If you've made it this far, thank you. And if you're following along, congratulations, because now you already have like half of your painting done, basically. So feel proud of that. So the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna very, very lightly plot out my skull. You have to think about, what is a skull? It's this bone structure inside someone's skin, it's their head, right? And thinking about how it's hard and round is a good place to start, even though that sounds a little weird. So I'm going to use this little canvas as a demonstration. Oh yes, let me turn on my split screen. The basis of a skull, if you're looking directly at it from the front, it's going to be something similar to a circle with 2 half circles on the side for the cheekbone. And then almost like a horseshoe, a distorted horseshoe shape for the bottom. So that's almost the skull shape. So you also have two distorted eyes that are gonna be in the middle of your skull. And it's round, so it's gonna be on a kind of a slanted axis. So we've got two kind of distorted eye holes right in here. And then essentially there's going to be an upside down heart underneath the eye, which in between the eyes underneath, which is the nose. Okay, so this is kind of a simpler breakdown of what we're going to be doing. Keep this simple breakdown in mind as I go forward. So because my canvas is black, I'm using red to do my outline, right? So it's very loose, and I want my skull slash circle slash outline to really fill the canvas. Don't put it small in the middle, really fill the canvas. Use loose brush stroke marks. Okay. Good. All right. So I don't know if you can see it, but it's a very vague outline. I can add a little white in there, in with my red to brighten it for you. There we go. That's kind of where we're starting off. Now we mentioned the little half circles, which are the cheekbones that kind of blend in on either side of the skull. I would say it's on the lower portion of the circle. And don't worry if you don't like the results right away. Paintings take time, and it really just takes patience. Okay, so we've got that. Now let's do the bottom portion of the face, the upper lip, nose area. But don't think of it that way. Think of this part as a larger kind of square horseshoe. An example of the shape I'm making a lot right now is like this. You see? A horseshoe is like this. This one's flatter on the bottom and kind of goes out because it then connects to the circle, which is the head. Now remember, everything is shapes. Break it down into shapes. That's going to be your best bet right now. So break it down into shapes and look at those shapes next to each other. How big is one shape in comparison to another shape? And try to honor that in your drawing or painting. And remember, you can always move things around and change it and adjust it as you go. It's not a serious thing, even though it feels serious. It's not. Okay. I'm gonna take a drink. Okay, so now let's plot in the eyes. Now, the eye sockets are almost like ovals, but they're like amoeba ovals because they're wilted a lot. And they really connect in with the cheekbone. So I'm kind of realizing that as I'm painting, kind of where things go. but I'm not trying to make you feel everything in your body, but if you touch right here, your eye socket, it's directly connected. That bone is directly connected to your cheekbone. So place those eye sockets low on the head. The tendency is to paint the eyeballs way up here, but pull them down lower, okay, and leave half of the head exposed on top. Okay. So in terms of proportion, the eye sockets should be really halfway between the jawbone and the top of your head, although most people, when they're drawing something, and if they're an amateur, they'll place the eyes way too high up on the forehead. So, and even me, whenever I'm painting this in, I'm having to like, okay, realize that it connects to the cheekbone, which then connects to the jaw, so on and so forth. So right now it doesn't look that good, but that's okay. First of all, make space for ugly art. Secondly, it takes time to make it look good, so you've got to just give it the time it requires. Okay, so we've got two kind of droopy ovals. We've got some space in between the ovals, which is where the bridge of the nose is going to go. Now let's paint an upside down heart for the nose. Now, of course, it's a little bit more nuanced than that, but often the space that is like, you know, where your nose would be can resemble an upside down heart shape in terms of just breaking it down. So already that looks like at least somewhat like a skull. What do you guys think of my dress? I just got it from Poshmark. Is that okay? I'm like not sure what it's okay to buy from now these days. Because it's like don't buy from certain things because they're canceled for whatever reason. All right, now we're gonna paint drips from the skull. So right now I'm just painting enough to indicate the direction I'm gonna go, and then I'm gonna fix it more later. A drip tends to be kind of bulbous at the end and more narrow at the very top of whatever it's connecting to, and there's usually multiple sizes of the drip. Okay. Okay, so I'm already realizing that this needs to be bigger and this needs to be smaller. There needs to be less space in between the nose and the top part of the mouth. And this is very common to have to adjust. It's not only common, it's good. It's a healthy painting practice to adjust everything as you go. Okay. Look, I'm just kind of taking the black paint and painting over and obscuring the line I made before. What's interesting about painting over things is it often looks way more intriguing and deep if you allow yourself to deepen and paint over and analyze it again. And the painting shows that the artist thought about it multiple times, and that can be more visually interesting than just having a straightforward type of painting where you just see that it was an A to Z process. All right, I'm gonna take my black, which I knew I was gonna run out of black quickly, so I'm gonna add more. Only use, I guess this is probably gonna be my best bet. I'm using a variety of paints today. I'm using a combination of Artist Loft. What is this? Hue, How? I don't know what that is. Wait, what is this one? This is from Amazon. Saks. I think I just bought bulk paint at one point. It's taken me years to get through, so I guess it was a good investment. And then I have, you know, a few expensive paints thrown in there, like Holbein and Gaffrey. So, you know, I kind of do a whole mix of the gambit. Never be afraid to go in and kind of carve out different spaces with your palette knife. I love having a palette knife to mix my paints with. And acrylic paint dries notoriously really fast, so I can't do it everywhere, but already that gives me a sense of space and shape and all of that. Now I'm gonna focus on the forehead slash the top of the head area, and I have to mix some colors first, so that should be fun. Hang on, let me see. I have a few different colors of red on my paint palette. I'm gonna actually add yellow and fluorescent orange. I might even get fluorescent yellow as well, but I need regular canary yellow at least. So I have magenta, cerulean blue, white, luminous red from Holbein acrylics, a regular lemon yellow, and black on my paint palette. I'm gonna add a little bit more black. Oh, see, the sun is coming out again. What do you know? Hang on. I don't want to flick paint onto my gorgeous dress. I am obsessed with this dress. This is my first time wearing it, actually. If you're a beginner painter, don't wear clothes that you like. But I will say, if you wash it immediately, it does come out. But you have to use cold water, and yeah, soaking it in cold water lifts the stain, okay? All right, so I'm gonna mix a light shade of red with my normal red and my fluorescent orange. Beautiful. I'm gonna try to show you like Bob Ross does, but this isn't technically for this paint palette, isn't the same paint palette, but whatever, we'll do our best. So we have that one. Now let's do the yellow. Taking some yellow, some white, and this is gonna be my highlight color. Actually, let's do a little more white. This is gonna be my highlight. I clean my utensils and stuff with this dirty blanket that I have on my table. Let's do a dark red with blue and purple. And this is more of a purple, but it's gonna be technically like a dark red or blue and red. You know, it makes purple, but it translates as a dark red, so we kind of have a gradient going. We definitely need a color that's in between those two. So let's take some of this and a little less blue this time. This is a good start. Now let's do blue with a tiny bit of red. This was red with a tiny bit of blue. Now we're doing the opposite. Blue with a tiny bit of red. sometimes you lose control of your paint and it just wants to go everywhere. It's okay. All right, so that feels darker. Blue translates as dark. Yellow translate is light. So if you want something to be lighter, put more yellow in it. If you want it to be darker, put more blue in it. Warm, cool colors like the sun is light, okay, on a very basic level. Cool colors like shadows is cool. They're purples, blues, sometimes greens. And it's mixes of all of them too, depending on what it is. But if you kind of keep that in mind, it's helpful. Okay. So, now we've got a little, let's do a even lighter orange by taking this fluorescent orange and mixing it with yellow. There. So now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 colors all in the shade of red, or different shades of red. All right. So this is essentially what a gradient is, and I'm gonna just break it down to you on this little piece of thing. So here's the dark one, the darkest part, right? Here, I can hold it into the close-up. There's the dark part. Now we're gonna get the second to darkest and put it next to it. Then the third of darkest. Then the fourth darkest. Fifth. And sixth. So you see how that's kind of a gradient happening? Only this time, instead of doing it up and down, it's going to be more like curved shapes, like that, with your brush, because it's a circle. Okay? So keep that in mind. So we're going to start out with that darkest shade and put it back here. This is our first step. So it's almost like you're outlining. There's a little divot right above the eyebrow bone, or right around the eyebrow. I guess, you know, around this area, which is your temple. So you can indicate that with one of the lighter shades of red that we are going to put. We're going to put this lighter shade of red up here by the eye and over here as well. So already it's like, whoa, what the heck? And don't be afraid of having brush marks. It's nice having brush marks. It's nice being able to see the paint be painty. Of course, different people have different styles. All right, in the center of the head, in the forehead area, I'm gonna indicate where I'm putting the orange. And it might feel a little disconnected and choppy at first, but that's a-okay. I actually need more orange on my... And what's cool about using fluorescent paint and mixing fluorescent paint in with your ensemble is when you put it under black light, it quite literally glows, which is a fun little secret to hide in your painting. And a lot of my paintings have that feature. So I mix the red and the orange to kind of be this marriage between the bright orange and the dark red. Nice. Whoa, that's so bright. What the heck? Oh my lord. Let's add a little bit of red in there. And I'm just keeping this circular painting motion so that it feels nice and round in there. Mixing some red into the orange ensemble here right above the eyebrow bone. And taking purple and red and combining the bright red in with the dark purple. Doing what I showed you with the gradient, only like bigger brush strokes. And sometimes you gotta go back and forth between the dark color and the light color to kind of give that blended effect. Is it starting to look cool? Good. I love that. Thank you. Okay. Really capturing the gradient is key. Okay, so we're getting there. If you realize you accidentally do something like that, the amateur tendency is to just kind of paint over it, blend it. Don't freak out. Wipe your paintbrush and kind of just wipe it off, and then go back in with the color you intended. Losing control of the paint is a constant battle, or I guess the battle would be maintaining the control over the paint. So it's okay if you find yourself kind of losing control, because that is so normal. It's part of the painting process. This feels a little too bright, in my opinion. I think we're missing out on this nice medium tone in here, so I'm gonna pull that back in a little bit. Same with the dark tone. I want to make sure that it's nice and built up and thick. Thick paint is satisfying. I love thick paint. All right. In between the eyes, I'm going to take a little bit of red, and I'm just going to indicate they're two bones right next to each other, but allowing the black to show through. And then these two bones right next to each other connect to the nose. This little space in between the eye and the nose needs to be cared for and addressed. So I'm literally just taking my red paint and painting in around the eye, indicating how I want the eye holes and the nose hole to kind of look. Just painting it in with the red. And I'm going to use brighter red here in a minute, but first we're just going to start out with this kind of a medium red. Nice. Okay. Still painting in my little drips, which I kind of showed you how I was going about it earlier. I'm putting it in relatively freely because I can always get my black paint and paint around it to make it feel more crisp and just defined. You don't just have to paint the positive space, you also get to paint the negative space too, which in turn fills in the positive space. Okay. So in here where the eyeball kind of divots underneath the eye, so I'm going to use that darker purple to shade under there. And now I'm going back and forth between, wait a second, I feel like that needs to be even higher than that actually. Actually, let's just put it in, and then I'm noticing that the eye needs to be a little bit bigger and lower. It needs to connect more with the jawbone, essentially. Same with on this side. Okay. Taking the red and painting in the cheekbone. Now I'm going to take the darker purple and shade on the side of the eyes and on the upper cheekbone to make it feel like it's rounded away from the viewer. Here as well. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and take a minute and use the black paint to remove some of the bright white that was my initial outline, essentially. Painting is often a push and pull between the negative and positive space. You paint something, it's not totally right, you correct it. That is the entire painting process. Although many Instagram accounts make it look like it's super A to Z, it's really truly not. But as you can see, defining the drips is a good idea. And this painting really does rely on the highlights. Right now it's getting a little bit lost in the darkness, but we're gonna pull it out with highlights shortly. All right, I'm gonna indicate more of a side of a head back here by painting more width. And then taking a lighter red and highlighting that just a little bit. I'm going to do the same thing over on the other side, taking the dark purpley red color, expanding the width. The width of the top of the head should kind of line up with the cheekbone. Taking a brighter red to outline the eye again and reiterate that portion of the face. Okay. This part's going to be fun. Let's take this brighter, I'm going to take this brighter orange and mix it in with my red, only this time I'm just using my paintbrush, which I use a lot of paintbrush mixing, as well as the palette knife. I do both. And I'm going to outline, I'm going to highlight the two little bones in between the nose and the eyes, kind of highlight that. Let's take a minute and go, oh, it's a little too wet to highlight the under eyes. Let's find another spot that I could highlight. Maybe I can highlight the right side of my skull. That looks good. It just kind of makes it feel like it's round, and I'm gonna even do a little bit right here as well. I'm using the fluorescent orange. That looks cool, right? It's more like dynamic. Now let's take some of this orange and put it in the drips. We're working it into the colors we already have. And this is gonna look so cool under the black light. Okay. I'm building out some of, like, where the nose is. I'm gonna highlight that a little bit more with the orange, so that it, and just like the eye too. But I have to integrate it with the red as well, so it's kind of like a back and forth dance between the red and the orange. Let's take a little bit of the yellow and push that into the cheekbone and on the sides of the eye. I mean, I feel like it needs to be integrated a little more. It's a little too brush strokey. I'll fix that by adding a little bit more red. The thing is, it's too strong of a contrast between the dark and the light, so it's like you have to add some medium values in there to make it make sense. So I'm gonna go in and intuitively paint kind of where it needs to be built up and defined. So we're gonna add more orange in here underneath the cheekbone to brighten it, as well as on top of the cheekbone. And we're going to integrate that into the outline of the eye. I mean, it's really giving a glowing effect, which is pretty cool. Let's do a little bit more thickness in here where it goes into the nose. There's gonna be kind of bright orange thickness under the eye that connects into the nose as well. And I'm also gonna go back and forth between using the bright orange and the red. And that's gonna give me that dynamic feeling. So let's bring up the nose. So like we're doing a lot of painting in between things, like this. The nose is like this. We're gonna go like make it more, just put a line in between it and then hollow this out even more with black, but create a gradient from red to black. So like here's the black. We want there to be a gradient from this part to this top, the point of the nose. Okay, so that's the vibe. So I'm gonna go in with my black. I'm gonna reiterate this portion, this upside down heart. And here at the bottom of the heart, the nose kind of turns into the top of the lip. So adding the red in there and blending the red a little bit into the black is a good idea. And we're going to do that with the eyes as well, but maintaining the depth of the black that we already have. We don't want to get rid of the black. Adding more red around the nose, allowing that to connect to the drips as the skull is melting into blood, which I know is so relaxing. But in the drips there needs to be some highlights, which is where this orange comes in. Otherwise it looks like nothing. It just looks blobby. The highlights really do come in clutch. So remember that. But you know, sometimes people get a little highlight crazy, so you have to make sure you are somewhere in the middle. Filter water ASMR. I always burp without fail after I drink filter water. It's just the way it goes. All right, I'm good. My bad. Okay, let's add more purple on the top of the head, and then we're gonna add another highlight up there. I also like this medium shade as well. I feel like there needs to be a little more of that in this ensemble. Okay, now let's do another orange highlight. A lot of this is kind of turning out to be a purple and orange vibe, but it kind of translates as red, if that makes sense. It's interesting. Let's take a minute and deepen the black behind the skull. Deepening the black behind the skull is going to allow the skull to come forward more visually. So I'm not worried about covering the entire canvas at the moment. I'm just focused on the black that's immediately surrounding the skull. I'm taking my time and deepening it. It's going to cause the colors of the skull to pop. I forgot to add drips on this side, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that. But I'm gonna stay focused and just cover up some more black. Just a little bit more. I love how it feels like it's emerging from the black. That was kind of the goal. All right, that feels good for now. I feel good with that. All right. Let's add a little few drips of blood on the right side of the skull, just by creating them the same way as I did the others, essentially. Although I do feel like these drips are darker. Sometimes the tendency for artists and painters is to make everything in the painting very defined and visible, when really the nuance and the undefinedness can be really cool for the viewer to experience. Because when you're looking at something in real life, it often is not super clear where everything starts and stops. And one little trick is sometimes messing it up. Like if it feels too stiff and plastic, sometimes going in and messing it up and scraping it away, kind of like I was doing with my palette knife earlier in the process. Sometimes that can be really helpful to expand the possibility of what that painting is. So I'm really happy about this close-up camera, because you really can't even see the painting very well in the other camera. Okay, adding more red on just in a few places where I feel like the transition from bright orange to dark red / purple is too stark. So going in, creating a middle value, if you will, can be a really good idea to make things feel more connected and not so choppy. So keep that in mind. Bright red in there would be good. I like that. It doesn't feel as, I don't know. I don't know. It's like these little, okay. I'm gonna take the orange and move it through the blackness of the eye and do kind of like a gradient like I did with the nose, where the bottom of it feels a little bit lighter because that's the back of the skull. It doesn't just go into nothing. There's the back of the skull, so it's going to be less defined and less contrast. So just go in. I'll show you an example of what I'm doing so you're not confused. Here's the big black spot, right? That's the eye, right? Now here's the orange and the red that I'm using. I'm blending it into the black. And at the base of it, it's going to be brighter, more saturated oranges, and then it's going to go in and create a gradient. So that's very, very much what I'm doing. And that allows the brain to think that there is the back of the skull behind the eyes. It's not just this black empty nothingness. So this is what the painting looks like from a distance. It's definitely there. It's not done. It's almost done though. It's definitely there, but it's subtle. So stepping away from the painting allows you to see what needs to happen in order to make it really pop, if that makes sense. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go in with my yellows and really create the highlights. I went in with my orange, but I have not gone in with my yellow. So give me 1 second and I'll do that. Well, what I'm gonna do first before I add the yellow is I'm gonna turn the upper eyebrow bone into like one solid shape, and I'm gonna turn this kind of into one solid shape. I'm gonna pull out a few shapes. Right now it feels just a little muddy. Let's once again mix these two colors, the red and the yellow, or orange. So pulling out the solid shapes. And here's going to be a stronger shape. And here's going to be a stronger shape. It's almost like the first few passes with your paintbrush is to feel out the space. But once you feel out the space, you can really kind of start to see where everything, you can simplify it into a shape. And this isn't everyone's process, but this is a process that tends to work for me. As you add in information, you may need to reiterate some of the older places or some of the, I haven't worked on the eyebrow bone in a while, so I'm going back in. Let's make this more purpley and turn it into it's like a purpley reddish gradient. It's a tiny little space between the nose and the eye socket, but it's an important little space. That feels decent. There we go. I want up here to feel brighter and thicker, I guess. I'm adding on more red and also blending that into the purple. And once again, kind of going back and forth, that dance between merging two colors in between each other. Now taking some of the orange, blending that in with the red once again. Nice. It's working. It's starting to look good. Let's do the same in here, just make it a little bit brighter in a few places, and then make that feel basically right under the eyebrow or eyeball bone on the where it is also the cheekbone that needs to be brighter. So I'm using the fluorescent right now, but I'm also going to go in and use some yellow, but I'm prepping the space for the brightest shade of the highlight instead of going straight into it. I will say, anytime you deal with shading and color gradients, the painting is gonna feel a little more maybe advanced for some people, but you'll also get more advanced looking results, which I love. Let's go in with the red and the oranges and address these drips again. The more you look at something, the more you realize it needs to be altered. So don't be ashamed if you realize that. Some of the drips are darker than others, and they blend more with the background, which is interesting. So add in your purple and your dark blue drips, because it feels like they're kind of in the back of the skull rather than in the front, which is nice. A few of my drips feel a little long, so I'm taking the black paint, and some of them feel thick, and I'm painting around them with the black. So, for example, here are my drips here, taking the black, painting around and altering the shape. All right? It's called painting the negative space. It's a pretty important part of my process. Wow, that's a lot of peace. That looks good. I'm gonna add some of this dark purple where the temple would be. And again, towards the back of the skull where it folds over into the darkness. Oh yes. I'm actually going to take this smaller paintbrush now, and I'm highlighting the top of the eyes with white and yellow. This is maybe a little too much, but here, blend it in a little, like that. That's good. It's okay to finger paint. Blend it in with my fingers just so it doesn't feel so, just, I don't know, harsh. It looks good. It almost looks like little eyebrows right now. It's funny. Okay. This one I'm kind of having to go back and forth on, but I think that's all right for now. Let's do the same thing right here in the middle of the forehead. Add a little highlight. I'm going to take a little bit of the fluorescent orange and mix it in with the highlight. That's nice. Literally all I'm doing right now is painting over what I already have painted and trying to clean it up and make it feel balanced and realistic by building up the layers and making it less defined in some places, more defined in other places, that type of thing. This orange kind of saves my life in the places where it just feels like it's completely disappearing. I feel like adding some of this fluorescent orange is the key. Like already that, I mean, it's maybe a little too much, but it at least brightens it a little bit. I am using a smaller brush right now, which is nice. It's allowing me to go in and kind of define some of the details. Back here at the back of the head, I'm going to actually brighten it with red and intensify that highlight a little bit. You also don't want to take away from the shading structure that you've already put in place. That's kind of the fun balance of painting, is adding without covering up the good stuff. So. I did do all of this in one stream. Yay! I'm glad that I picked a subject that you guys resonate with. It's important to find a balance between something that's advanced enough to be entertaining, but simple enough to show you how to do it with me. So, yeah. And also simple enough to achieve in one stream, because I will be doing longer paintings as well, like more in-depth paintings, but I also enjoy the quick kind of tutorials. Do you hear the music now? That's okay. I don't want to be the Scrooge and be like, turn off the music. Idiots. Okay, there's a little highlight on the nose. Again, I'm just kind of going back and forth between the orange and the red and the orange and the red and then the purple to deepen the parts that are dark and to reiterate the shapes that are there. Let's do a dark purple in here on the side of the face where it kind of goes away visually, away from the viewer. And then in here. But yeah, I mean, it is interesting whenever you're working on a painting and it doesn't look good for a long time, and then you do something to it and you're like, oh shoot, it looks good now. Okay, cool. Yeah, it's fun. Staying true to the colors that I mixed at the beginning of my painting session, which it's not wrong to incorporate more colors than what you initially mixed, but it's always nice when you take the time to mix the colors before you start painting, and then you use those colors throughout the painting process without really needing to mix very many more. It's always a nice feeling. I'm gonna take my big paintbrush and take a big blob of black and just paint the background black again. I'm wondering if I should keep the background totally black or if I should do something back there to create interest. Hang on, I'm gonna add more black to my painting palette. My tube is almost out, so give me a second. Bear with me. All right. This particular tube has lasted years, so I feel good about that. All right. I'm just gonna go in, thicken the black paint behind it. I have purple velvet sticky paper, which might look cool around this. But I could also buy black velvet sticky paper, and that could be a vibe, you know? What would you do if this was your painting? I'm glad I'm getting to a stopping point, really. That looks so cool. It's so like nuanced. Wow. Let me take a picture of it. I have to hold it out because there's a glare. I think it looks cool. That could be a softer transition from orange to black. Let's just soften that a little. It's all good. That's too bright. It's kind of cool though. I kind of like it. I mean, I think I toned it down enough. Thanks again so much for being here. I really appreciate it, and I hope you learned a thing or two.